The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city streets glistening under the warm glow of streetlights. David Thompson adjusted his expensive coat and glanced at his watch. It was already past 8:30, and he knew his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, would be getting tired soon. They had just finished dinner at one of the finest restaurants in downtown, celebrating a big business deal he had closed that afternoon. "Daddy, can we get ice cream on the way home?" Lily asked, her small hand tucked safely in his as they walked toward their car. Her voice carried that special excitement only children have when they're out past their usual bedtime. David smiled down at his daughter. "We just had that chocolate cake, sweetheart. Don't you think that's enough sugar for one night?" Lily giggled and swung their joined hands back and forth. "But Daddy, ice cream is different from cake. They go to different places in my tummy." He couldn't help but laugh. Ever since his wife had passed away 3 years ago, these moments with Lily had become everything to him. She had a way of making even the simplest conversations feel magical. Her innocent logic and boundless curiosity reminded him daily why he worked so hard to provide for their future. As they turned the corner toward the parking garage, the sidewalk became quieter. The fancy restaurant district gave way to older buildings with darker doorways. David was mentally going through tomorrow's schedule when Lily suddenly stopped walking. "Daddy, look," she whispered, tugging on his coat sleeve with unusual gentleness. David followed her gaze to a narrow doorway between two shops. At first, he almost missed it in the shadows. Then his eyes adjusted and his heart skipped a beat. There, curled up against the brick wall, was a young woman. She looked to be in her early 20s, wearing a thin denim jacket that had seen better days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was using what appeared to be a flattened cardboard box as a pillow. "Daddy, why is she sleeping here?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There was no judgment in her question, only pure, innocent curiosity mixed with genuine concern. David felt his throat tighten. He had walked these streets countless times, always focused on his destination, always busy with phone calls or thinking about work. How many times had he passed by someone who needed help without even noticing? The thought made him uncomfortable. The young woman seemed to be sleeping peacefully despite her circumstances. Next to her sat a small black backpack, worn at the edges but carefully zipped shut. A paperback book lay open beside her, its pages slightly damp from the earlier rain. Even in sleep, there was something dignified about the way she carried herself. "I don't know, sweetheart," David answered honestly, his voice softer than usual. "Sometimes people don't have homes to go to." Lily's eyes widened with the kind of concern that only comes from a pure heart. "But Daddy, it's cold outside, and it was raining earlier. Where does she keep her clothes? Where does she brush her teeth?" Each innocent question hit David like a gentle but persistent wave. His daughter's natural empathy was both beautiful and heartbreaking. At 6 years old, Lily couldn't understand the complex reasons why someone might end up homeless, but she instinctively understood that something wasn't right about the situation. "Can we help her, Daddy?" Lily asked, looking up at him with those big, trusting eyes that had always been his weakness. David glanced around the empty street, then back at the sleeping figure. His first instinct was to explain to Lily that it was complicated, that they couldn't just help every person they encountered. But something about the scene stopped him from giving his usual practical response. Maybe it was the book beside the young woman that suggested she was educated. Maybe it was the way she had chosen a spot that was hidden and discreet, showing she wasn't looking for attention or handouts. Or maybe it was simply his daughter's unwavering belief that helping others was the natural thing to do. "We can't wake her up right now, sweetheart," David said carefully, kneeling down to Lily's eye level. "But maybe we can think of a way to help tomorrow." Lily nodded seriously, as if her father had just given her an important mission. "Can we bring her some food? And maybe a blanket? It gets really cold at night." David found himself smiling despite the heaviness in his chest. "You have a very kind heart, Lily. You know that?" As they continued to their car, David couldn't shake the image from his mind. The young woman's peaceful expression, the carefully positioned backpack, the book that suggested she was trying to better herself, despite her circumstances. There was something about the whole scene that felt different from what he might have expected. During the drive home, Lily was unusually quiet. staring out the window at the passing lights. Finally, she spoke up from her car seat in the back. "Daddy, when Mommy was in the hospital, you said she was sleeping a lot because she was very tired and sick. Is the lady on the street sleeping outside because she's sick too?" David's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Lily's innocent question revealed a deeper understanding than he had given her credit for. She was connecting what she had seen to her own experience with loss and vulnerability. "I don't think she's sick like Mommy was, sweetheart," David said gently. "But sometimes people have different kinds of troubles that make life very hard for them. The important thing is that you noticed her and wanted to help. That shows what a good person you are." "When we help her tomorrow, can I pick out what food to bring?" Lily asked, her enthusiasm returning. "We'll see," David replied, though he was already making mental notes about what might be appropriate. As they pulled into their driveway, David looked at their beautiful house with its warm lights glowing in every window. The contrast between their comfortable life and what they had just witnessed on the street was impossible to ignore. He had worked hard for everything they had, but he also knew how quickly circumstances could change. His wife's illness had taught him that security could be fragile. That night, after tucking Lily into her bed surrounded by stuffed animals and favorite books, David found himself standing at his office window, looking out at the city lights. He kept thinking about the young woman in the doorway and his daughter's simple question, "Why is she sleeping here?" In his business world, David was known for making quick, decisive choices. But this situation felt different. It wasn't about contracts or profit margins. It was about human dignity and his daughter's developing understanding of the world around them. He realized that tomorrow would be more than just another day. It would be the beginning of something that might change all of their lives in ways he couldn't yet imagine. David barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his daughter's innocent face asking, "Why is she sleeping here?" By 5 in the morning, he gave up trying to sleep and quietly made his way to the kitchen. The house felt unusually quiet without Lily's cheerful morning chatter. He stood by the coffee maker watching the dark liquid drip into the pot and found himself thinking about breakfast. Not just his own breakfast, but wondering when the young woman from the doorway had last eaten a proper meal. The thought bothered him more than he expected. When Lily woke up 2 hours later, the first thing she said wasn't her usual request for cartoons or cereal. Instead, she padded into the kitchen in her favorite pink pajamas and asked, "Daddy, are we going to help the sleeping lady today?" David looked down at his daughter's hopeful face and made a decision that surprised even him. "Yes, sweetheart, we are." After getting Lily ready for school, David made a detour to the local coffee shop. He ordered 2 large coffees, some fresh bagels, and a few pastries. The barista, a friendly college student, smiled as she rang up the order. "Having a meeting this morning?" she asked, noticing the extra items. "Something like that," David replied, not quite sure how to explain what he was actually doing. The drive to downtown felt different in the morning light. The streets were busy with people hurrying to work, everyone focused on their own day ahead. David parked near where they had been the night before and walked toward the narrow doorway, carrying a paper bag with the food and a cardboard tray with the coffees. As he rounded the corner, he half expected the doorway to be empty. Maybe she had just been resting there temporarily, or maybe she had found somewhere else to go. But she was still there, sitting up now, reading the same paperback book from the night before. In daylight, David could see her more clearly. She looked younger than he had first thought, probably around 22 or 23. Her clothes were worn but clean, and she had made an effort to comb her hair and organize her few belongings neatly beside her. When she noticed him approaching, she looked up with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. Her eyes were intelligent and alert, not what he might have expected from someone living on the streets. "Good morning," David said, feeling awkward and unsure of the right way to start the conversation. "I hope you don't mind, but I brought some coffee and food. You don't have to take it if you don't want to." The young woman studied his face for a moment, as if trying to determine whether he was sincere or had some other motive. Finally, she closed her book carefully and set it aside. "That's very kind of you," she said, her voice soft but clear. "I'm Rachel." And thank you. But I should probably ask why you're doing this. Most people don't just bring breakfast to strangers. David appreciated her directness. I'm David, and honestly, I'm here because my 6-year-old daughter saw you last night when we were walking to our car. She asked me why you were sleeping here, and I didn't have a good answer for her. Rachel's expression softened slightly. Your daughter sounds like she has a good heart. She does, maybe too good sometimes. David held out one of the coffee cups. She wanted to help, and I guess I realized I wanted to help too. Rachel accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. I don't usually take handouts from strangers, but I haven't had good coffee in weeks. Thank you. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Rachel sipping her coffee and David trying to figure out what to say next. Finally, his curiosity got the better of him. The book you're reading looks interesting, he said, nodding toward the paperback beside her. Rachel glanced at the book and gave a small smile. It's for my psychology class. Well, it was for my psychology class. I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish this semester. You're in college? Community college, Rachel clarified. I was studying to become a social worker. I wanted to help kids who grew up in foster care like I did. David felt his assumptions shifting. What happened, if you don't mind me asking? Rachel was quiet for a moment, seeming to decide how much to share with this stranger who had brought her breakfast. Finally, she spoke. I aged out of the foster system when I turned 18. No family to fall back on, but I was determined to make something of myself. I had 2 part-time jobs and was doing pretty well in school. Then I got really sick earlier this year. Some kind of flu that turned into pneumonia. I couldn't work. For almost a month, lost both jobs, couldn't pay rent. She paused to take another sip of coffee before continuing. I've been trying to get back on my feet, but it's harder than you might think. When you don't have an address, it's tough to get hired anywhere decent. When you don't have a job, you can't get an apartment. It's like being stuck in a circle you can't break out of. David found himself genuinely impressed by her articulate explanation and her lack of self-pity. She wasn't making excuses or asking for sympathy. She was simply stating facts about a difficult situation. You mentioned wanting to help foster kids, David said. What made you choose that path? Rachel's eyes lit up for the first time since they had started talking. I spent 12 years in the system. Some homes were good, some weren't. But the social workers who really cared made all the difference in my life. There was one woman, Mrs. Patterson, who visited me every month from the time I was 10 until I aged out. She never gave up on me, even when I was angry and difficult. She sounds like she was important to you. She changed everything for me. She's the reason I stayed in school, the reason I believed I could go to college. I want to be that person, for other kids who feel like nobody cares about them. David was struck by the passion in Rachel's voice when she talked about helping others, even while she was struggling herself. It reminded him of his daughter's natural instinct to help the night before. What's your plan now? David asked gently. Rachel shrugged, but David could see the worry behind her casual gesture. Keep looking for work. Try to save enough for a deposit on a room somewhere. Maybe I can get back into school next semester if things work out. Where? Do you usually spend your days? The public library mostly. They have free internet and it's warm and quiet. I've been tutoring some of the younger kids there with their homework. Their parents can't always afford professional tutoring, so I help when I can. David stared at her in amazement. You're tutoring kids while you're homeless? Rachel looked almost embarrassed by his surprise. It's not a big deal. I'm good at math and English, and those kids need help. Besides, it makes me feel useful. At that moment, David realized he wasn't just talking to someone who needed help. He was talking to someone who was already helping others, despite her own desperate circumstances. The contrast between Rachel's situation and her generous spirit was both heartbreaking and inspiring. As he walked back to his car an hour later, David's mind was racing with possibilities. This wasn't just about buying someone breakfast anymore. This was about recognizing potential and maybe, just maybe, finding a way to help someone who was clearly meant to help others. That afternoon, David found himself doing something he had never done before. Instead of diving straight into work emails after lunch, he sat in his office staring out the window thinking about Rachel. Her words kept echoing in his mind. I want to be that person for other kids who feel like nobody cares about them. When he picked up Lily from school, she immediately bombarded him with questions before he could even get her seatbelt fastened. Did you find the sleeping lady, Daddy? Did you give her food? Is she okay? Can I meet her? David chuckled at his daughter's enthusiasm. Slow down, sweetheart. Yes, I found her this morning. Her name is Rachel, and she was very grateful for the breakfast we sent. Rachel, Lily repeated thoughtfully. That's a pretty name. What did she say? Does she have a little girl like me? No, she doesn't have children, but she loves helping kids. She actually teaches children at the library when they need help with their homework. Lily's eyes widened with excitement. She's a teacher? That's so cool. Can we go see her tomorrow? Please, Daddy? David had been wondering the same thing himself. Would you really want to meet her? Yes, I have so many questions to ask her. Like, what's her favorite color? Does she like ice cream? And why doesn't she have a house? The next day was Saturday, which meant no school for Lily, and a lighter work schedule for David. After breakfast, they drove back to downtown, this time, with Lily practically bouncing in her car seat with anticipation. They found Rachel in the same doorway, but this time she was surrounded by 3 children who looked to be between 8 and 12 years old. She was patiently explaining a math problem to the youngest while the older ones worked on their own assignments. See? Rachel was saying to a boy with curly hair. If you have 10 apples and you give away 3, how many do you have left? 7, the boy announced proudly. Exactly right, Tommy. You're getting so much better at this. Lily tugged on David's hand and whispered loudly, Daddy, she really is teaching kids. Rachel looked up at the sound of Lily's voice and smiled. You must be the little girl your daddy told me about. Lily suddenly became shy, hiding partially behind David's leg, but her curiosity won out quickly. Are you really Rachel? Daddy said you help children with their homework. I do, Rachel said warmly. These are my study buddies. We meet here every Saturday morning. One of the older girls, who looked about 10, spoke up. Rachel is the best teacher ever. She helped me understand fractions, and now I got an A on my test. That's because you worked really hard, Maya, Rachel replied. I just showed you a different way to think about it. David watched this interaction with growing amazement. Here was Rachel, living on the streets, but she had created her own little outdoor classroom. The children clearly adored her, and more importantly, they were learning. Can I learn something too? Lily asked, finally stepping out from behind her father. Of course, Rachel said. What grade are you in? First grade. I'm learning to read chapter books. That's wonderful. Reading opens up the whole world for you. For the next hour, David sat on a nearby bench and watched his daughter interact with Rachel and the other children. Rachel had a natural gift with kids, explaining things in ways they could understand, celebrating their successes and encouraging them when they struggled. When the other children had to leave for their various weekend activities, Rachel packed up the few books and supplies she had been using. Those kids really love you, David observed. Rachel smiled. They're amazing. Tommy there? He's been struggling with math all year, but he's finally starting to get it. Maya is one of the smartest kids I've ever met, but she just needed someone to believe in her, and little Alex is already reading at a level way above his age. Where are their parents? Working mostly. Weekend shifts at restaurants or stores. Their parents care about them, but they can't always help with homework. Math has changed a lot since we were in school. Lily, who had been listening to this conversation while coloring in a small notebook Rachel had given her, looked up suddenly. Rachel, why do you teach kids outside? Don't you get cold? Rachel glanced at David, unsure how much to explain to a 6-year-old. David nodded encouragingly. Well, Lily, I don't have a classroom like your teachers at school. Right now I don't have a house either, so outside is where I can meet the kids who need help. Lily processed this information with the serious expression she got when she was thinking hard about something. But Daddy, couldn't Rachel teach kids at our house? We have a big table in the dining room that nobody ever uses. David felt his heart skip a beat. His daughter's innocent suggestion was actually brilliant. "That's a very thoughtful idea, sweetheart." Rachel looked embarrassed. "Oh, I couldn't possibly. You've already been so kind and I don't want to impose." "It's not imposing if it would actually help," David said, the idea growing in his mind. "Lily's right about the dining room table. We never use it, and our house has plenty of space." "I don't know," Rachel said hesitantly. "I appreciate the offer, but I couldn't ask you to open your home to someone you barely know." David understood her reluctance. He was essentially a stranger, offering help that seemed too good to be true. "What if we started smaller? What if you came to dinner tomorrow night just so Lily can get to know you better and you can see the house? No pressure, no strings attached." Lily clapped her hands together. "Yes, please say yes, Rachel. I want to show you my room and all my books." Rachel looked between David and Lily, clearly torn. "I don't want to take advantage of your kindness." "You're not taking advantage of anything," David assured her. "Honestly, Lily hasn't been this excited about having a guest over since before her mother died. You'd actually be doing us a favor." The mention of Lily's mother seemed to help Rachel understand that this family had their own struggles and losses. "Your wife passed away?" 3 years ago, David said quietly. "Cancer. It's been just Lily and me since then." Rachel's expression softened with understanding. "I'm so sorry, that must have been incredibly difficult." "It was. But Lily has been my strength through everything, and lately she's been teaching me about the importance of helping others. Like helping you," Lily added matter-of-factly. Rachel laughed, a sound that lit up her whole face. "You know what? I would love to come to dinner tomorrow. Thank you for asking." As they prepared to leave, Rachel gathered her few belongings. David noticed she moved with efficiency, as if she had learned to pack and unpack quickly. "Rachel?" Lily called out as they were saying goodbye. "Will you bring some of your books tomorrow? I want to see what college books look like." "I'd be happy to," Rachel replied. On the drive home, Lily chattered excitedly about all the things she wanted to show Rachel and all the questions she wanted to ask. David found himself looking forward to tomorrow night more than he had anticipated. That evening, as he tucked Lily into bed, she said something that made him pause. "Daddy, I think Mommy would have liked Rachel. She always said we should help people when we can." David kissed his daughter's forehead, feeling grateful for her wisdom and her generous heart. "I think you're absolutely right, sweetheart. I think Mommy would have liked her very much." Sunday evening arrived faster than David expected. He found himself more nervous than he had been before any business meeting. Lily, on the other hand, had spent the entire day preparing for Rachel's visit. She had organized her room, picked out her favorite books to share, and even convinced David to let her help make chocolate chip cookies. "Daddy, what if Rachel doesn't like our house?" Lily asked, as she carefully placed napkins on the dining room table they rarely used. "I'm sure she'll love it, sweetheart. But remember, the most important thing is that she feels welcome and comfortable." When the doorbell rang at 6 o'clock, Lily raced to answer it with David close behind. Rachel stood on their front porch holding a small bouquet of wildflowers and looking nervous but beautiful. She had somehow managed to find clean clothes and had braided her hair neatly. "These are for you," Rachel said, handing the flowers to Lily. "I picked them from a field near the library. I hope that's okay." Lily's face lit up like Christmas morning. "They're perfect. Daddy, can we put them in Mommy's special vase?" David's throat tightened at the mention of his wife's vase, but he nodded. "I think that's exactly where they belong." As Rachel stepped into their home, David watched her take everything in. The warm lighting, the family photos on the walls, the comfortable furniture that showed signs of being lived in and loved. Her eyes lingered on a large photo of David, his late wife Anna, and baby Lily. "Your wife was beautiful," Rachel said softly. "Thank you. That was taken right after Lily was born. Anna was so proud to be a mom." Lily grabbed Rachel's hand and began the grand tour. "This is our living room where we watch movies on Friday nights. And this is the kitchen where Daddy burns pancakes sometimes. And look, this is the big table I told you about." The dining room table was indeed large, easily seating 8 people. It was made of rich oak and positioned near a large window that overlooked their backyard. "Wow, this would be perfect for tutoring," Rachel said without thinking, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to assume anything." "Don't apologize," David said quickly. "That's exactly what we were hoping you'd think." During dinner, David discovered that Rachel had a wonderful sense of humor and could match Lily's endless questions with patient, thoughtful answers. When Lily asked why Rachel liked helping kids so much, Rachel's response made David's chest tighten with emotion. "When I was your age, I felt very alone sometimes. I lived in different houses with different families, and I never knew if anyone really cared about me. When I help kids with their homework, I get to show them that someone believes they're smart and important. That's a feeling every child deserves to have." Lily nodded solemnly. "I'm sorry you felt alone, but I bet those kids you help never feel alone now." "You're right," Rachel smiled. "They don't, and neither do I when I'm helping them." After dinner, they moved to the living room where Lily insisted on showing Rachel her extensive book collection. As Rachel examined each book and listened to Lily read a few pages, David noticed how naturally she encouraged his daughter, praising her reading skills and asking thoughtful questions about the stories. "Rachel, will you read me a bedtime story tonight?" Lily asked when her usual bedtime approached. Rachel glanced at David uncertainly. "If your daddy says it's okay, I think that sounds lovely," David said. 20 minutes later, David stood in the doorway of Lily's room, listening to Rachel read The Velveteen Rabbit with different voices for each character. Lily was captivated, hanging on every word. When the story ended, his daughter surprised him. "Rachel, I wish you could live here with us. Then you could read to me every night and teach kids at our big table, and Daddy wouldn't be sad sometimes when he thinks I'm not looking." David's heart nearly stopped. His 6-year-old daughter had seen right through him, recognizing the loneliness he thought he had hidden so well. Rachel looked at David with understanding in her eyes. "Your daddy loves you very much, Lily, and I think you make him very happy." "He does love me," Lily agreed, "but he misses Mommy, and sometimes our house feels too quiet. It's not quiet when you're here." After tucking Lily in, David and Rachel sat on the back porch with cups of coffee, both processing what Lily had said. "She's very perceptive for her age," Rachel said gently. "Too perceptive sometimes," David admitted. "I thought I was doing a good job of not letting her see how hard things have been." "You're doing an amazing job as a father. Anyone can see how much she loves and trusts you, but kids notice more than we think they do." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the evening sounds of the neighborhood. Finally, David spoke. "Lily was right about something else, too. The house doesn't feel as quiet when you're here. It feels more like a home." Rachel set down her coffee cup and looked at him seriously. "David, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about your offer to let me use your dining room for tutoring, and it's incredibly generous. But I'm worried about taking advantage of your kindness." "What would it take for you to believe that you're not taking advantage?" "Honestly, I'd need to feel like I was contributing something meaningful in return." David had been thinking about this exact question all week. What if it wasn't just about tutoring? What if you could help with Lily too? Not as a babysitter, but as someone who could be here when I have to work late, someone who could help her with homework, someone who could be part of our daily routine. "You mean live here?" Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. "We have a guest room that never gets used. You could have your privacy, come and go as you please, but you'd have a safe place to sleep and study, and Lily would have someone who understands how important education is." Rachel was quiet for so long that David began to worry he had overstepped. Finally, she spoke. "I haven't had a real home since I was very young. I don't even remember what it feels like to belong somewhere. Neither have we, really, not since Anna died. This house has been just a place where Lily and I sleep and eat. But today, with you here, it felt like a family again. What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not what you and Lily need?" David thought about his daughter's joy that evening, her excitement about sharing her books, her contentment as Rachel read to her. "Rachel, you've already given Lily something I couldn't give her on my own. You've shown her what it looks like when someone overcomes difficult circumstances with grace and determination. You've taught her that helping others is important, and you've made her feel like she has a big sister who genuinely cares about her." "And what about you?" Rachel asked quietly. David considered his answer carefully. "You've reminded me that there's still goodness in the world worth fighting for. You've shown me that helping others doesn't just change their lives, it changes ours too. And you've made me realize that maybe Lily and I don't have to do this alone anymore." Rachel wiped tears from her eyes. "I'd like to try. If you're really sure." "I'm sure," David said without hesitation. "We're sure." That night, as David showed Rachel the guest room that would become hers, he realized that his daughter's simple question a week ago had led them all to something none of them had expected to find a chance to be a family again. 6 months later, the Thompson house had transformed into something David barely recognized. The dining room that had once collected dust was now the heart of their home. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, and Saturday mornings, it buzzed with the voices of children working through math problems, reading assignments, and science projects. Rachel had not only moved in, but she had flourished. She was back in school, maintaining perfect grades while helping David with Lily, and running what had become an unofficial tutoring center. The house was filled with laughter, learning, and life in a way it hadn't been since Anna's death. "Miss Rachel, I got an A on my history test," announced Kevin, a 12-year-old who had been struggling in school when he first started coming to their tutoring sessions. "That's fantastic, Kevin. I knew you could do it," Rachel beamed, giving him a high five. "What was the secret?" "You taught me how to make those timeline charts. It made everything make sense." David watched this exchange from the kitchen doorway, a smile spreading across his face. These moments happened daily now. Children who had been failing were now succeeding, and their parents often stopped by just to thank Rachel for the difference she was making. But it wasn't just the children who were thriving. Lily had blossomed under Rachel's influence. Her reading level had jumped 2 grades, she was more confident in school, and she had developed a genuine love for helping others. "Daddy, can I help Tommy with his reading today?" Lily asked, tugging on David's shirt. Tommy was one of their newer students, a shy 8-year-old who reminded David of his daughter when she was feeling uncertain. "If Rachel thinks you're ready to be a reading helper, then yes," David replied. "She's definitely ready," Rachel said, overhearing. "Lily has been practicing with me all week. She's going to be an excellent teacher." As the evening tutoring session wound down, David noticed Rachel seemed quieter than usual. After the last child left, she sat at the dining room table organizing papers, but her mind seemed elsewhere. "Everything okay?" David asked, settling into the chair beside her. Rachel looked up with a troubled expression. "I got a phone call today, from someone I haven't heard from in 2 years. "Who was it?" "His name is Jake. He was in foster care with me for 3 years when we were teenagers. He aged out of the system around the same time I did, but he didn't have the same opportunities I had. He's been struggling, and now he's in some serious trouble." David could see the weight of worry on Rachel's shoulders. "What kind of trouble?" "He's been living on the streets for months. He got caught stealing food and might go to jail. But David, he's not a bad person. He's just desperate and doesn't know how to ask for help. He called me because he doesn't have anyone else." "What do you want to do?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I want to help him, but I don't know how. I can't ask you to let another person into your home. You and Lily have already given me so much." David reached over and took her hand. "Rachel, what do you think we should do?" "I think we should help him," came a small voice from the stairway. They both turned to see Lily in her pajamas, obviously having snuck out of bed to listen to their conversation. "Lily, what are you doing up?" David asked gently. "I heard Rachel crying," Lily said, climbing into Rachel's lap without invitation. "Rachel, remember what you told me about helping people who feel alone? Jake feels alone, right?" Rachel hugged Lily close. "Yes, sweetheart. He does feel very alone." "Then we should help him." That's what families do. David felt his heart swell with pride at his daughter's words. Families do help each other, don't they? Over the next few weeks, David used his business connections to find Jake a job at a local warehouse. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and the manager was willing to give someone a second chance. Jake stayed in their guest room temporarily, while he saved money for his own place. Watching Rachel help Jake get back on his feet gave David an idea that had been growing in his mind for months. One evening after Jake had found his own apartment and was doing well at his job, David asked Rachel to take a walk with him in their backyard. "I've been thinking," David said, as they strolled among the flowers Anna had planted years ago, "about all the young people like Jake who need help transitioning out of foster care." "I think about it all the time," Rachel agreed. "There are so many who just need someone to believe in them and give them a chance. What if we could do more than just think about it? What if we could actually make a difference on a bigger scale?" Rachel stopped walking and looked at him curiously. "What do you mean?" David had been working on this plan for weeks, researching and making calls. "I want to start a foundation, something that helps young adults who age out of foster care. We could provide temporary housing, job training, educational support, mentoring, everything you wished you had when you were 18. Rachel's eyes widened. "David, that would be incredible, but something like that would cost a fortune. I can handle the financial side, but I need someone to run it who understands what these young people are going through. Someone who's been there and knows how to help them succeed. You want me to run it? I can't think of anyone better qualified. You've already proven what you can do. Look at this tutoring program you've created. Look at how you helped Jake. Look at how you've transformed our family." Rachel was quiet for a long moment, processing what David was proposing. "This is what I've always dreamed of doing, but David, are you sure? This would be a huge commitment." "I've never been more sure of anything, except maybe one other thing." "What's that?" David stopped walking and turned to face her. "I'm sure that I love you, Rachel. I love your strength, your compassion, your dedication to helping others. I love the way you've brought joy back into this house and the way you've loved Lily as if she were your own daughter." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "David, I know this might seem sudden, but I've been thinking about it for months. I don't want you to just be part of our family temporarily. I want you to be part of our family forever. Will you marry me?" Rachel's tears were flowing freely now. "Are you sure? Really sure?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." "Then, yes, I'll marry you." From the house came the sound of clapping and cheering. They turned to see Lily pressed against her bedroom window, having apparently witnessed the entire proposal. 6 months later, they stood in their backyard surrounded by friends, family, and many of the children Rachel had tutored. Jake was there too, now thriving in his job and taking college courses at night. Mrs. Patterson, the social worker who had made such a difference in Rachel's life, served as Rachel's maid of honor. But it was Lily who stole the show. As the flower girl, she walked down the aisle scattering rose petals and grinning from ear to ear. During the ceremony, when the minister asked if anyone had anything to say, Lily raised her hand. "Can I say something?" The minister smiled and nodded. "I just want to say that Rachel is the best almost mommy ever, and I'm so happy she's going to be my real mommy now." As laughter and happy tears filled their backyard, David looked at his new wife and his daughter, and realized that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones you choose, not just the ones you're born into. The foundation they started, called New Beginnings, went on to help hundreds of young people transition from foster care to independent, successful lives. But it all started with a simple question from a curious little girl. "Daddy, why is she sleeping here?"